with everything that's happened the past couple years, it seems to me like the focus for silver, gold too, but especially silver, has gone from potentially collecting, a mix of, buy and hold for financial purposes, to pretty much just the financial aspect. It doesn't seem like the collectible aspect of it is really thriving at this point. And I'm wondering why. Now, first and foremost, I can imagine that a lot of that is due to, people being cash strapped. If you don't have money, you probably can't throw any money at gold and silver, but also you probably can't spring a little bit extra to actually be collecting for anything. But then that tells me that, or it screams to me at least, like, hey, at the end of the day, if you're buying something, right, you should have something that you're kind of inclined to hold on to. I think too, one of the things that may be lost on some stackers, not most, especially if they've been doing it for a while, but I would argue that potentially, again, there are pros and cons to collecting anything, right? Any type of collectible. If you're paying a premium, then you have to justify why are you paying that premium. But I would say potentially the best type of stacking may be some form of collectible, and here's why. Now, before I say this, I know that statement probably triggered so many people, but I would say if you're just a regular stacker and you're building your stack over time, if you're stacking something like, bullion coins like maples or eagles or things like that, or even the humble Britannia, anything that's just a pure government minted bullion coin. Is it good? Absolutely, right? Better to have some than none, and the recognizability of the government bullion's obviously nice. But the thing is too that, there are plenty of stackers that'll tell you, well, you just want to go silver is silver. The cheapest silver is the best silver. There's an argument to be made there. Now, here's where I would argue that potentially a case could be made for stacking higher premium stuff or collectibles. Now, I'm not just talking any random collectibles. I'm talking about still the more recognized collectibles, your kookaburras, your pandas. Although I guess the panda's considered a bullion coin. It is a bullion coin. It's an Asian Chinese bullion coin, and G laughs every time you buy one because it's only 30 grams instead of 32. But hear me out. I would say that potentially putting your money into slightly or at least appealing coins is, at the end of the day, the whole point of stacking, right, for most, is to hold on to it, right? Let it appreciate for that day when you can say, I told you so, to all the people that said silver wasn't going to go, to 50 or 100 or whatever it's going to be. I'm one of those, by the way. I don't think it's going anywhere, primarily because it's in industrial metal, but you never know. But again, you have to really understand yourself. And I think this is one of the things that gets lost with many things in finance. And I think, this is actually one of the human traits that makes it very difficult. If you don't create some type of incentive for yourself to hold on to something, at the first sign of trouble, you're going to bail out. So what does that mean? Well, first, if you're holding on to things like, again, eagles or rounds of some sort, come the first sign of trouble, you're going to be the first one out the door. You're going to the coin shop, you're going to liquidate, and that's fine because, hey, at the end of the day, at least it served the purpose, unless, of course, you're underwater, in which point you just wasted your time and blew your money. But, at the end of the day, hopefully, again, it serves some purpose. Now, if in that same situation, let's say you had some type of collectible, or I wouldn't say numismatic because that's a whole other beast, but even potentially numismatics, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to go ahead and liquidate that kind of thing, right? It's going to be hard. Why? Because you're going to think twice about liquidating. Whereas with, again, bullion coins or rounds, yeah, it's pretty easy. You can replace them. You're going to be able to find them pretty easy. And again, if they're straight rounds, there's no difference. Just buy them back again, same thing. But certain collectibles, you're not going to be able to find them again. And if you are, the person who does have them this time is going to be able to hold on to them. And so they're going to ask for that, premium back. That's what makes it difficult. That's what makes it, hard. And so that moment of pause may be worth your time, worth your money to not get screwed on the back end. Now, there is, as with anything, right? There's always a threshold there. There's always some limit of kind of where you want to be. Now, most of the stuff down here, I would say, is pretty much in that range. Maybe the exception would be something like this. You don't need a 2-ounce mirror finish Libertad. I mean, maybe you do for, you know, to keep your soul clean, but most people probably don't need that. Also, this over here. So this is actually from the Royal Mint. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. So this is actually the last minted coin with the face of the Queen on the back. So it's a 2-ounce proof. So it's got the Queen on there. So this is actually, I purchased this right after she died. So this one's a long-term hold. It's serialized, so it's got the, you know, the little holder over here. You can see. So it's numbered, serialized, all that. And so that's more of a long-term hold. Do I think it's really going to go anywhere? Not really. I mean, again, the Queen did reign for a long time, but I think, you know, people's memories are short. But you never know. Especially abroad, people might want something like this. So it's worth having some of it. I like the idea that, again, the diversity gives you just multiple people to sell to, whereas if you just have rounds, yeah, there's probably going to be somebody there to buy from you, but it's probably going to be the coin shop, unless you're discounting your stuff versus what they could get it online for. So, you know, to each his own. But I do think the case could be made for having some portion of your stack be collectible, be, you know, just more than the average. So many of my pieces, like pretty much the great part about having a good coin shop is, you know, especially if they have a display. I've noticed some coin shops don't really have much of a display, and I'm like, what is this? You want me to just come in and know what I want? No, I came in with money so that I could, you know, look over some selection and kind of pick stuff that speaks to me. It's interesting though, like, you know, before I had a good coin shop that I would go to that had, you know, 2 or 3 display cases that they would just fill out with stuff that came in, you know, the previous day, the previous week, whatever. And so it made stacking pretty fun because it was kind of like going into the toy store. You go in there, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're adding weight to your stack, and you're buying something that you actually appreciate and like and can look at and get some other value other than just the financial aspect from it. But now that I don't have a coin shop that's nearby, you know, it's just not as fun to buy online. Yeah, you know, I guess if you're that personality that likes to just sit there on Amazon all day and just, you know, have the presents pile up at the door, I mean, more power to you. But for me, it's not as exciting as being able to walk in and get my stuff right away. You know, this guy, it's funny. I did walk into that coin shop one day and was able to get this. I think spot at the time was 30, 33. No, maybe it was like 30. Maybe it was 30. And this is a slabbed, you know, MS-70 Eagle. This was the new version. I got this guy, I think, for $32. And you know, it's funny because when I asked, oh, how much is that one? Because I was like, you know what, it's just an Eagle, but it is slabbed. Come on, give him some credit. And it is quote unquote first strike. Although I learned from Salivate Metal that that's actually BS. That's just a BS title that they put on there. There's no way to validate when it came, you know, when it was actually struck. You know, there's a bunch of quote unquote first strike. It really doesn't mean anything. It's a huge first strike. But I mean, you know, come ups like that, that's the fun part of stacking, you know, like, hey, I got one over on the man. Versus, you know, it's funny because when that happened, I literally stopped myself and I was like, I should probably tell this lady that that's worth more than that. But I was like, you know, they're making money. They're gonna be fine. I'll take one for the team on this one. So, you know, that's kind of fun. Whereas online, that's not gonna happen. You think AppMex is gonna be shipping me an extra, you know, couple pandas that I ordered from President Xi? No. You think SD Bullion's gonna give me anything more than that container full of belly button lint and Werther's Original that they keep promising on the commercials? No, they're not giving me crap. And so, again, where does, you know, higher premium stuff fit into your strategy? I don't know, but I would say a case could be made.